Summary of Existential Nationalism. Existential nationalism is the political doctrine that was introduced in 1938 by revolutionary Trung Tuan. EN is embedded with many generations of Vietnamese patriots and is seen as a torch for their existential fight. EN was born in the context of the country when faced simultaneously with two great calamities, colonialism and communism. This was a sacred call to the people to stand up for their survival in the complicated world at the time. In 1964, EN was interpreted and presented by the late Professor Nguyễn Ngọc Huy, Doctor of Political Science and an inspiring leader, in two books, National Survival 1 and 2. Professor Nguyễn Ngọc Huy analyzed and codified it into the political doctrine of the democratic system of Vietnam. After more than 80 years, EN is still relevant to Vietnam, although the country now faces new conditions. Those who believe in EN must fight simultaneously against communism and the threat of Chinese invasion in order to build an independent and progressive Vietnam. Although many diasporic Vietnamese are curious in the political work that preceded them, limited proficiency in Vietnamese has prevented them from accessing the foundational texts of EN. Accordingly, a group of elders have collaborated in summarizing the theory and its principles in three languages, Vietnamese, English, and French. This summary adapted from the contents of the books on EN by the late Professor Nguyễn Ngọc Huy. It is our wish that the young Vietnamese generation achieve much success following their ideals. The Adaptation Committee believes that the democratic principles underlying EN are ones that can bring stability and long-term development to Vietnam in the future. The fundamental basis to understand human history is about the relationship between social activities and the governing bodies, that is, the relationship between the ruler and the people. Much of this communication is dominated by political ideologies and all the dominant ideas and principles governing society combining into ideology and society. Active thoughts must be authentic and political must adhere closely with the people's psychology in order to be successful, that is, reconciling and synthesizing practical and theoretical aspects of a society. Moreover, political concepts must need to be simple and easy to understand. We have to admit that current political theories are indicative of conflicting ideas. The theory of democracy originated in the 17th century from Britain and France. Democratic governments pledged to protect certain freedoms such as religion, speech, assembly, the press, and recognize all people are equal before the law and private rights are guaranteed. Regarding religion, the most appropriate attitude is to accept them, protect their practices, and remove them from the political activities of the people, similar to Western societies where religion and governmental bodies have been separated since the 19th century. In short, the democratic theories all revolve around freedom and equality, but in practice, freedom becomes more and more limited and equality in society is so complex that it is often used as slogans only. Because property rights are respected, assets are often concentrated in a group of capitalists, thus creating social injustices, including manipulation of the economy and resulting tyrannical capitalists in democratic countries, now controlling politics and disparate social classes. Therefore, by the mid-19th century, a social theory arose advocating the abolition of private property rights, as this allowed for the exploitation of people. Going one step further, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels put forward the theory of materialism, which argues that all historical events so far are only the history of exploitation and struggle between the classes. Marx also advocated the destruction of the bourgeoisie's capitalists and the application of ironclad discipline to destroy personal freedom, character, religion, morality, the nuclear family, even the entire country, to build a universal world. The third and fourth communists all had the same purpose, which was to use class war to seize power and establish communist dominance, leading toward a communist society that is to produce according to one's potential and consume as needed. Those were, of course, in theory only. To oppose the communist tie, Fascism and Nazi movements deny human integrity, destroy individual freedom, demanding that the people strictly depend on the nation. Therefore, Fascism and Nazi doctrines' failures was deemed inevitable in Italy and Germany. In parallel with this movement, there was a hybrid theory that combined democratic and socialistic values, named as the People's Three Theory by Untitled of the Republic of China. The basic policy of the People's Three Theory is the people's ethnic, people's right, and people's livelihood. Due to the diverse status of the Chinese nation, the principles of the people's ethnic were expanded to include all people of China. The people's rights meant freedom and equality. The people's livelihood included socialism without the class struggle. Meanwhile, the democratic versus socialistic war was fierce between Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. Recognizing that Chinese people strongly supported the People's Three Theory, Mao Zedong founded the new People's Three Theory, which also advocated the people's ethnic, the rights, and the livelihood. But the people's ethnic advocated expanding to the liberation of all colonies. People's right is centralized. People's livelihood minimizes personal assets and nationalizes large industries for the common good. In short, the two doctrines of the People's Three Theory, both old and new, have failed in China and have mostly targeted China's problems. It is the population was not uniform in their stance toward pro-democracy, since some were still in favor of a monarchy. Moreover, the two aforementioned theories were unsuccessful in China because even as those two doctrines were both synthesized accommodating Western democratic and socialistic theories, Mao Zedong's theory was more closely aligned with communism. That is the difference between the theories of old and new people's theory. Vietnamese people were caught in the midst of conflict with the colonialists, influenced by ongoing international events and exploited by international communists. This situation could not last forever, and the Vietnamese needed to unite together to fight with a new foundational ideology. EN theory was created to aid in the demolition of false ideas and to formulate an appropriate theory for the Vietnamese people as a means to fight for their survival. The majority of the political theories currently in circulation are country-specific, and they hold little value when practiced beyond its boundary or are out of date with the period when it was originally conceived. We must find a different one that is solidly grounded in harmony with human nature, that unites and strives to protect our sacred rights. The survival of the Vietnamese people can only be achieved in that thought process. Therefore, we respectfully invite readers without hesitation to criticize, correct, and comment, to improve our chance to have a basic workable ideology as a means of fighting for the survival of the Vietnamese nation. The first society where an individual exists was the family, to fight against beasts, other humans, nature, and enemies. Gradually, the need for socialization appeared basically as the families formed, then tribes, and then ethnic groups. People of the same bloodline, language, and customs joined and formed nations to fight together. The theory of materialism advocates the destruction of the individual personality, the destruction of the family and the nation in order to arrive at a universal world. But this theory completely fails because it is contrary to the nature of man. Nation building is a basic human organization because it is a collection of the people of the same race, language, personality, ideas, and circumstances. The instinct of survival influences all human actions and gestures, from unconscious actions to conscious ones. The natural reactions of the body, the reflexes and actions performed subconsciously, as well as the premeditated actions, are all governed by instincts, both physically and mentally. Selfish instincts to ensure life, such as self-defense instincts, nutrition, freedom and activity, family instincts. Social instincts can include socialization, moral instincts, mass assemblies. To survive, all creatures need adaptive instincts. The law of competition requires that people adapt to social circumstances because the fight never ends. In short, people or nation is the union of people, families, and fellow citizens as essential condition for the survival of the nation. Fundamentally, EN respects basic human freedoms and considers the nation an organization set out to help human survival because that must always be considered the ultimate essence of society. Let us briefly examine the organization of the people, the political, social, economic, the military organizations, and ultimately the issue of national leadership. In any political system, regardless of one's desire, the issue of ethnic organization must be given priority because this is the driving force that governs human activities. Political systems should focus on human interactions and rely on the pursuit of human survival. In addition to material existence, there is also spiritual survival to enhance one's life. Additionally, the political system must also recognize basic human freedoms. Thus, the monarchy or dictatorship, especially the communist dictatorship, is not suitable to govern people because it is harmful to the masses and vulnerable to abuse of power. The parliamentary system guarantees freedom, but parliamentary debate is often slow and tedious. The presidential system is seen as is most suitable since it reconciles the shortcomings of other regimes such as centralized democracy and parliament. In the presidential system, executive, legislative, and judicial powers are equal, independent, accountable to each other, so the freedoms of the people is better guaranteed. A country that solves social problems demonstrates its ability to transform and proves whether it has adequate conditions to survive. If every day the poorest people have enough food to eat, clothes to wear, a roof over their head, and to live and hope for a brighter tomorrow, that is the proof that their country can solve social problems and that they can survive. Taxes should be used to provide for the poor and the elderly in need of care. Human survival instincts motivate them to improve their lives. Therefore, society must be fair. Additionally, people need to be aware of their rights regarding their duty to the nation. That is the role of education and culture. Economically, the guiding economic policy is considered a system with many conditions set forth to protect the survival of the nation and the individual, while simultaneously leaving private property rights in place. In contrast, the collective economic regime is often controlled by the government. To summarize, there must be equality in both political and economic systems because those two entities are strongly intertwined. Regarding the military or defense, the strength of the nation is due to the military force or other necessary connections. Through the years, with many changes and dynasties, the army gradually became a force to protect the nation's interests. The military's operations are directed to the necessary reinforcement for defense and were under the strict control of the government. the conscription policy may also apply. The military or a nation does not lead to success if the people do not engage in capable foreign relations with other nations. If nations do not engage diplomatically, they risk hostile countries uniting to confront them, which endanger their survival. In short, a people trying to survive must be very skilled and diplomatic with regards to foreign affairs. Personal affection must be set aside, as foreign relations can only be dealt and based on common interests of the people. Having competent leaders is directly correlated to the survival of the nation. The dictator chooses only members of the party. The aristocrat selects only people in the same class, excluding common people and resulting in social disorder. The monarchy selected candidates through examinations, so it is deemed relatively fairer. Democratic society votes for leaders, which is ideal because those leaders can be easily replaced as needed. This system is good for the survival of the nation, but the people must also be informed to understand and choose for the survival of the nation. The middle class is deemed most suitable because they do not live a hard or selfish life. On the contrary, they need a prosperous society. Therefore, there is a need for the nation to have a large middle class, that is, small bourgeoisies of the masses. We have examined the roles of political system in human societies and found that there is no political theory that is virtuous and flawless. The reason is that they do not look at the truth, and the political ideologies that exist have failed to build a better society. This situation continues to this day and could lead to a great war. Upon close examination, humans work to survive materially and spiritually. Upon that notion, the doctrines all had the common purpose of ensuring the people can survive. Since democratic ideologies advocate two principles, freedom and equality, democracy is thus a method for human survival. Don Van advocated the theory of the People's Three in pursuit of the survival of the Chinese nation, which also only served Chinese people, excluding other ethnic groups. Hitler's racism was also used as a propaganda for the survival of the German people. E.N. reconciles individual survival with that of communities. E.N. does not advocate one world or individual liberty. More practically, it is not a dream but a remark about people's desire to survive under the harsh conditions that influence their existence. E.N. is a more scientific form of nationalism than those commonly practiced, and E.N. guarantees fundamental freedoms such as freedom of movement, assembly, belief, and thoughts. E.N. offers the view that living is fighting. Refusing to do so is to die because conscious struggles improve the dignity and character of the people. This video was created based on the summary of E.N., a collaboration amongst members of the Alliance for Democracy in Vietnam.